Hey guys, Sim Dim Gaming here. Welcome to the first of hopefully many of my survival horror top 5 video series. And the first one we're going to kick it off with is my personal top 5 Resident Evil games. Now there's obviously no official list, so this is just all my personal preference. So let me know what you think in the comments below. If you agree with my list or what your list would be, I'd like to know what your top 5 are. And without further ado, let's jump in straight at number 5. Now, number 5, no surprise to people that know me, is Resident Evil 7. Now, I think this was a great return to form for Capcom and their survival horror roots. I will admit, initially, when I saw gameplay, I didn't really think it was going to be that good because of the first person camera angle, but that actually turned out to be one of my favourite points of the game. So for those of you that haven't played it, I'm surprised if people haven't played it, but it is set after Resident Evil 6, so it is continuing on the canon storyline of the Resident Evil timeline, which is great. It's set in a different area, obviously Raccoon City is long gone, and it's set in a different part of the US, and you're playing a totally new character, Ethan Winters, who's looking for his missing girlfriend, or wife, Mia, and that's where the story starts. You learn that she's staying with the Baker family, and the Baker family are definitely not who they seem to be. You end up having to fight off the entire Baker family, and there are some insane moments, and what I think makes it more insane is the fact it is in first person and how close the characters get to you. And I'm just going to play some of the stupidly insane moments right now.
Thought you'd just slip out before dinner was done? I'm on to you! How am I gonna replace this? Get out of there! You're wasting your time! Hey, put that door back! Put that door back up! Wait! Fuck it! I'm gonna kill every one of you!
You, my friend, you are one lucky son of a bitch. You know, I actually envy you. What? You don't believe me? This short? Well, you can't fake this. It has taken me weeks to finish this, and it is finally ready. And it's all for you. Oh, come on now. Don't be like that. It's gonna be fun. Just you wait.
And that's just some of the bits without giving away anything for the people that haven't potentially played this game. There are so many insane moments in this game. It's unbelievable. But it's a survival horror game, and it genuinely makes you feel on edge and it makes you feel scared, which I think Capcom did amazingly. And that is one of the main reasons why Resident Evil 7 is 5th on my list. There are other things too. The gunplay is great. The item combining system is also good. The storyline is pretty decent as well. It's not as action orientated as, say, Resident Evil 5 and 6, which isn't a bad thing. It is more of a horror game than both of them combined. The only problem I had with this was obviously the departure from zombies. It's gonna happen. It happened for a while. However, the molded were a little bit bland, and once you figured out take their leg out, you can then go behind them and stab them with the knife. You have way too much ammo for the game, and that's why it isn't higher on my list. But yep, Resident Evil 7, number 5. If you haven't played it, I definitely recommend that you do. Now let's move on to number 4, and number 4 is one that I've only completed recently, which is Resident Evil Revelations 2. Now, the reason I've only completed this recently was because Revelations 1 left a very bad taste in my mouth. The game just didn't play well. I played the non-DS port and I didn't think it was a very good port, but I was so happy to play this game, and when I got to play it, I fell in love with it. Finally being able to play as the magnum-wielding badass Barry Burton is amazing. The fact he's a little bit older and more grizzled at this point is really cool. So the basic premise, you play as Claire Redfield and Barry Burton, and they each have a partner character. Claire's partner character being Barry's daughter Moira, and Barry's partner character being a mysterious girl named Natalia. The long and short, Claire and Moira get kidnapped, and Barry comes to rescue them and meets Natalia along the way. Now, the storyline is fantastic in the fact that Claire and Barry's storylines are connected but separate. Now, what I mean by that is Claire's story is set 6 months before Barry gets to the location where they are, and a lot has changed in that time. But enough about storyline. One thing I think that shines in this is the actual gameplay and the gunplay. Now, you get set guns on each character, so Barry will have his weapons and Claire will have hers. The partner characters don't use weapons as such. They don't use firearms, they'll use melee weapons, which again is another interesting mechanic, because you can't just leave your partner character that doesn't have firearms to fend for themselves, because the enemies are quite challenging. That being said, there is a very good dodge mechanic. I was playing on the Xbox, so it's the B button. You press B in a direction, your character will physically shift themselves in that direction, being able to dodge. And another good thing as well is you can actually save a lot of ammo by knifing the enemy a couple of times, dodging, knifing again until they go down. So that's a great gameplay mechanic that I wish Revelations 1 had. The boss fights in this are strong as well. As you can see here, it's one of the sub characters turning. A little bit of a spoiler, but it's nothing major or significant. But yeah, the boss fights are great. It's not just a case of blasting them till they go down. You have to find out their weak points. Otherwise, you're just going to use all your ammo and then be screwed later. As well, I have to mention raid mode. Now, raid mode is something the Revelations games have. Now, it's like a sub mode, very much like Mercenaries, and you get to select from the characters in the game. You even get to play some of the Resident Evil 6 characters, such as Chris and Leon. They have their own skills, you can equip them with the weapons you want, and you go through a series of challenge levels. That is really fun. I probably played about 15 to 20 hours of it already at this point in this video. So it's really fun, and it's got a lot of replay value, just like the Mercenaries modes from previous titles. So this is why this is number 4. It's a very strong game with a great storyline, controls are fantastic, and it has a lot of replay value. But I've only completed it once, so that is why it's not higher on this list. Now we move to the top 3, and I'm going to start off with number 3, and that is Resident Evil Outbreak, specifically Resident Evil Outbreak File 2, and I'm going to tell you why now. So it's little things like I never got to play Outbreak File 1 online because in the UK our version wasn't compatible with the PlayStation Network features, so I never got to play that. But with File 2, when that came out the year after, it was. So I got to experience Resident Evil Outbreak File 2 online, so I played a lot more of it essentially. And there's just a few things, like the game itself. The levels were longer, making them harder because you obviously have to make your ammo last over a longer period while maintaining your character's health as to stop your virus going up to 100%. So in the events of Outbreak File 2, you play one of 8 characters, including a police officer, a doctor, and a student, each having their own ability and items. For example, if you're Kevin the cop, he starts off with a 45 caliber handgun and he gets a spare magazine for it. So that's 14 shots you start off with. And he can also do a pot shot, which essentially he aims and fires and gets a critical shot automatically. Where this game shined was online. It was in the early stages of online gaming on consoles. You had a network adapter in the back of your PlayStation 2. I still have mine, which is quite interesting, and it still works. But I digress. You essentially could play with up to 3 other players, making a 4-player team, and play through these levels. Now the gameplay was great because sometimes your teammates would need help, and through basic voice commands on the controller, they could ask for help. If they were in the next room, you would hear a muffled scream from that character, which means you'd have to go back and help them and potentially risk your own life, or leave them for dead. The choice was totally yours, and I thought that made great diverse gameplay, and it just made it really desperate as well. No one wants to see their teammates die, you always want to get everyone out, and that was just fantastic. Really well done to Capcom on that. Also, you had a lot of mechanics which I haven't seen in other Resident Evil titles. As you can see there, our characters were just physically breaking down a door because it was locked. So there were things like that. You could unlock doors by brute force, or if you played the character Alyssa, you had a set of lockpicks, and then you had to pick the lock of the door, which was interesting. Each character only had 4 item slots, so you had to be very careful with what items you picked up. Were they going to be ammo, health, or items to help you progress through the level? Now, Yoko had a backpack. That was her ability, which gave her 8 slots, so she was very, very useful. She was more of a pack mule character because she was quite weak, but again, that just made more diverse gameplay. Annoyingly, the servers were shut down quite a few years ago on the actual PlayStation 2. However, you can still play this game. You can play it through an emulator, and there is an online community who have resurrected the game, so the game is still up and running. This is how I was able to get this footage. This has all been filmed recently, but it is still an active game. If anyone is a fan of the Resident Evil series and was more a fan of the older ones from the PS1 and PS2 era, I really recommend you play this. There is a great community. It has a lot of replay value because no 2 runs are the same. You could do really well one run, and you could literally be tested beyond your limits on the next. So this is why Resident Evil Outbreak File 2 is 3rd on my list. Now let's move straight in to number 2. This used to be my top number 1 Resident Evil game of all time, and that is the badass Resident Evil 3. This game is fantastic. I absolutely adore this game. This is my favourite one from the original trilogy. Now, a lot of people will disagree with me on this, but I personally think Resident Evil 3 is a vast improvement over Resident Evil 2. And don't get me wrong, I really do like Resident Evil 2. That has cemented a place in the nostalgia area of my heart. But I'm going to go over why I prefer Resident Evil 3. One of my favourite things about Resident Evil 3 is the fact it's not solely set in the police station. Don't get me wrong, the police station was an awesome location in Resident Evil 2. However, I found that Resident Evil 3 had more depth in that respect because you got to run around way more of Raccoon City. I also found the voice acting was a lot better as well. To be honest, Resident Evil 2 and 3's voice acting is obviously better than the first game because come on, that is just cheesy. But yeah, I found the dialogue was a lot more fluid, the characters interacting with each other in the cutscenes as well. For example, the Dario cutscene felt like he was genuinely upset that he'd just lost his daughter out there, rather than a dude reading off a script. I found the tank controls were a lot better as well. The fact you can quick turn around made it a lot easier to get out of tight situations. As well, the dodge mechanic is fantastic. If you don't know the dodge mechanic, basically when an enemy is near, you press the aim button and Jill will turn around and push them, potentially pushing them on the floor, making it so you can actually make your way past them. She can even push multiple enemies down at the same time. What was also cool is freaking Nemesis chasing you through most of the game. Genuinely terrifying. When I was a kid playing it for the first time, Nemesis was way scarier than Mr. X to me. And the fact that fighting him as well, you can potentially either run, or on hard mode you get rewarded with weapon parts and first aid spray boxes. So it means that you can either pick your fights or take him out to get more powerful weapons, such as the STI Eagle, which is an amazing pistol by the way. One of my final reasons, before I get on to number 1, the Mercenaries mode in this, Operation Mad Jackal, is by far, in my opinion, the best Resident Evil minigame there is. It's fantastic. Essentially you get to play as Carlos, Mikhail and Nikolai, and you have to reverse run through Raccoon City, saving survivors, killing enemies and escaping. Really, really great minigame, and I genuinely think it's the best one out there. And these are some of the many reasons why Resident Evil 3 is my number 2. Now we have the top spot, and it goes to Resident Evil 2 Remake. This game is by far the best Resident Evil game I have ever played. It's probably, in my opinion, the best video game remake of all time ever. Also, I know there are some people out there that will still say that Resident Evil 1 Remake is the best remake ever. Great game, fantastic remake. However, personally, I just thought this was better in every way. And trust me, Chris and Jill are my favourite characters. I prefer them to Claire and Leon, even though Claire and Leon are both a close second for me. Capcom's 2019 reimagining of Resident Evil 2 in my eyes, was almost perfect. There were a few annoying things, such as Ben getting like 6 lines and then getting his head smushed like a melon. I mean, what the hell? But, you know, that's up for debate. Also, I like the fact they switched a few things up. For example, starting off in a gas station kind of made more sense. Leon not starting off in his RPD uniform as well. Little touches like that. Meeting Kendo about halfway through in Leon's story was also pretty good and really heartbreaking. I thought the voice acting and the mocap in this game were just amazing, that you genuinely felt the character's emotions, like Kendo's pain when he was talking, and you know, Leon feeling sorry for him, which was great. That was just amazing, and it made me feel totally immersed in the game. The gunplay is fantastic as well. The enemies are also really janky, which makes it very hard to read their movements, unlike the original games. So the zombies shuffle around quite a lot and they interact with the environment. They can trip over things, they can bump into other zombies and things like that, which makes it really hard to line up headshots sometimes. Speaking of headshots as well, it's also not always wise to just aim for headshots, because it can take sometimes up to 11 bullets to take out a zombie. So you have to figure out strategies and, you know, whether to take out 2 zombies in this corridor or run around them to then take them out later. So in that respect, it's fantastic. Also the other enemies as well, such as 5's that can instantly kill you if you don't have a defense item. Overall, this game is one hell of a ride. The boss fights are hard, the enemies can be hard, you can die very easily, so you have to be smart and have your wits about you. Great survival horror game, putting you on your toes, making you have to make those snap decisions. Great game, well done Capcom for this one. This is definitely the game I would recommend to anyone new to Resident Evil, because of the new control scheme, the new engine, and the updated graphics. Genuinely one I think people that are even new to survival horror would enjoy. These are just some of the reasons why Resident Evil 2 Remake is number 1 on my list. Let me know what you guys think of my list. Is this the same as the list you'd have? What would you change? Let me know what your top 5 are in the comments below. And if you're new, please subscribe and click the bell notifications to be notified when I post new content. Thank you for watching guys, this is Dim Gaming, and I'll see you in the next one.